Good evening. Welcome, and thank you for joining us tonight as we kick off our 39th season of River Styx here at the Tavern. Well, not 39 seasons here at the Tavern, but 39 seasons of River Styx and 2 seasons now at the Tavern. Tonight we're bringing you 2 writers, poets Annie Finch and Stephen D Schroeder. I know it says on your little bookmark calendar-y things that Joe Shuster is reading, but he had a funeral to attend in Cleveland, so he could not make it. So what we're doing is we're going to have our good pal Stephen D Schroeder, who is breaking our 5-year rule since he read with us a few years ago when his first book came out. But since he has a new book to support and he can't read in his own series, the Observable series, we decided what the hell, we'll bring Stephen along here. And then Schuster is going to be reading with us January 20th. So we're going to triple up then, so we don't miss him, because we don't want to miss Joe Shuster. Okay, what else did I want to say? Oh, both authors have brand new books for sale, courtesy of Left Bank Books, just yonder on the other side of the velvet curtain, along with new issues of River Styx and other assorted goodies, like our annual microfiction contest and back issues, and we might even have some CDs and those cool little 3-headed Kerberos dog stickers, which go really good on your bumper stickers and the back sides of toilet seats and stop signs. You get the idea. All right, so I would like, first of all, to take care of some business. I would like to welcome our brand new managing editor, Tina Shin. So everybody say hi to Tina. And today is her birthday as well, so be sure to wish her a happy birthday. So Tina, if you haven't had a chance to meet her yet, she is smart and funny and charming and capable and organized, and yet somehow she still fits in with the River Styx dysfunctional family, and we love her. And then also, don't forget to say hi as well to our outgoing managing editor, Shani Latham, who's back there eating carrot soup. We didn't have a falling out. She just got too damn busy for us, so we understand that. Also, she had to work with me, and there's got to be like term limits for that. Okay, so I would also like to welcome our new River Styx at the Tavern series coordinator, Kimberly Lozano. Kimberly Lozano. She helped create a fantastic season for all of us. Yes, Shani, lively and diverse. And because Kimberly worked on it, it's also thoughtful and unique. In addition to being a River Styx editor and board member, Kimberly is a gifted and versatile writer her own self. Her poems have appeared in Denver Quarterly, Iowa Review, The Journal, and Poetry Daily. She has a story forthcoming in Alaska Quarterly Review, an essay forthcoming in Midwestern Gothic. She also writes plays, rap songs, country western ballads, and a blog about her adventures in competitive eating. She teaches creative writing for Oasis, a lifelong learning organization for adults 50 and over. She has 1 million children, a whole squalid brood living somewhere in Wildwood. And in the history of the world, no one has ever said an unkind thing about her, and no one ever will. And hypothetically, if they did, they better not say it around me, because she's one of my dearest friends. So please welcome Kimberly Lozano.
Wow. Oh, I was mad about the competitive eating, and now that was extremely sweet. Thank you, Richard. I'm really happy to get to be a part of this. I've been coming to the readings for some years now, and this is really exciting for me to get to take an even bigger role in River Styx and what's going on here with the readings. Well, I'll get right into our first reader. Our first reader tonight is Stephen D Schroeder, and I met Stephen at a River Styx reading at Ducks. And if you haven't met him, he seems, I think, sort of shy and a little quiet. But I soon learned that Stephen probably knows more poets around the country than anyone I know in St. Louis. And when he talks, yeah. And when he talks about going to AWP, it's like he's going to some huge class reunion or something like that. And then I overheard him and Annie Finch talking about how they met at AWP. And so it's fun for me to get to introduce Stephen. I'll get right into the good stuff here. His second book of poetry is The Royal Nonsuch. It's just out from Sparkwheel Press. His poetry is available from New England Review, Pleiades, Verse, The Journal, and Barrow Street. He edits the online poetry journal Anti, serves as the co-curator for Observable Readings, and works as a certified professional resume writer. So I just got a copy of Stephen's book this weekend when I learned that, and it's just out, I didn't have my copy yet, when we were gonna have a switch of readers. So I got to settle in with it and read it front to back this weekend, and I wrote some thoughts down about it. Stephen's latest book is a record of trespasses and misdeeds. The poems probe matters of friendship and family, love and country, and are studded with such disparate images as garden gnomes that appear in a bedroom, an overflowing crock pot, a devil's party, Costco casket sellers, a shoulder of beef, and a box the size of Colorado, which is actually from where Stephen hails. Not a box, but Colorado. Stephen's poems are full of gutty claims, moments of clarity, and moments of the surreal. As you read them, they force you to adjust, as if you're traveling along a path of uneven stepping stones, him balancing you all along the way. And I want to read just a couple lines from his poem, Nothing Has Ever Happened and Nothing Ever Will. We'll tell who or whom we spied hiding in your closet tonight, but deny the idea we might have been behind door number 2 instead of outside your bedroom window. And why do you store rat poison under the counter for your toddler Jennifer to find? Stay tuned. Oh, and I have to say that if you're interested in finding the page numbers for the specific sins cataloged in this book, there's an index of transgressions in the back, and that last poem, I believe, falls under child endangerment. So anyway, please welcome Stephen D Schroeder.
Thank you, Kim, for that lovely intro. I would like to clarify that I actually hail from a box in Colorado. And thank you also to River Styx for inviting me here. I'm sorry I'm not Joe Shuster, but hopefully I will do an okay job. It's a real pleasure to read with Annie Finch, whose work I admire so much. And I'm going to reverse the usual thing poets do. I'm going to start with a few new poems and then go into the book, since the book itself is so brand new. The current stuff I'm working on is apocalyptic and dystopian. It's sort of a mashup of post-apocalyptic cliches with other themes. I think you'll figure it out pretty quickly. So I'll just read a couple of those. First one is called Nuclear. Our moms were bombshells, all steel and fuel and triggers. Our dads were demagogues who said the bomb and meant it must be obeyed. They fit together better than military and haircut, we thought. We fought if they split war from head. We had sex dreams involving missile silos and mushroom clouds. Our sisters, their code silence, handcuffed briefcases fail-safe on their wrists. Our brothers launched by accident and moonlight. Woken by the hotline, we pushed the button designated retaliate, and when that dysfunctioned, one marked meltdown, flashing red. The same old argument was over who started fission chain reacting first. The philosophical discussion, what would you do with your last minute alive, devolved into a lecture on battery life. Our husbands balded due to radiation poisoning and lost most of their eyesight to the blast, they claimed. Our wives also got sick of canned beets and concrete bunkers and wanting to believe the claims. Dogs gone, we trained pet grievances to carry water. We traveled desert waste, horizon close as closure, where other survivors told us colder. The fire in winter caves painted shadows on the bedrock, our shadows in the shape of broken. Our sons and daughters were fallout that drifted deep in rifts, but we called snowflakes, pure like in the stories. Our sons and daughters were our children. And this is going to be kind of a whiplash tonally, a complete shift. This one, I hope most people here know what Mad Libs are, where you have a piece of text and you take out verbs and nouns and things and then have people substitute it in. So this is an apocalyptic Mad Lib. And at some point when I read this, I'm actually going to try to have the audience fill in the Mad Lib for me and then read the result, but I will spare you that experience and I'll just read the Mad Lib as it would be filled in. It's just called Mad Libs. We felt adjective about immorality and how to verb it, and so in year elected a powerful profession called biblical name as president of place associated with trouble. The new Bureau of Military Term, however, spent its plural noun declining in value on surveillance of stereotyped group of people. For children's first invented holiday, at the sort of torture or execution show, they gave each a weapon-stamped patriotic and/or advertising slogan in color with sinister overtones. They moved to aggressive action, our private matter, and paint us value judgment by nature or nurture, regardless of how much we screamed synonym for no as an exclamation. The belief that sardonic aphorism on humanity we restated as profanity. After the cataclysm, we declined from life by the sword to death by the noun that rhymes with sword. With plentiful resource depleted, gangs formed like sense impression evoking flames, their mission to punish crime or sin, their insignia a monster on a phallic vehicle. Many victims lost a body part or relative, but more, something intangible but essential disappeared. We abandoned sentimental memory the same time as technology. Complete sentence offering open-ended war metaphor for poem's theme. There was no other way to say it. We verb with a hint of sadness, past tense, past a wistful image from a wasteland, adverb. And the other type of poem in this apocalyptic series are much shorter, sort of margin notes, set up as a dialogue between an I and a U. I'll just read a couple of those. They don't have titles per se, they just have day numbers. This one's day 11,682, which isn't especially important. Day 11,682. History for a kick adds flashbangs and inflammatory. One thing I forget about that night my eyes burn. One thing you say you'll pay if I test the pepper spray. History triples the people it claims. One thing you mix with oil and light to make unrest. One thing I tell you is just fireworks or storm warnings. This is history you and I can be or be repeating. And day 1309. Boy meets girl waiting in line to take a number to get on the list. Boy loses girl at the test site in a holding cell, all in your head. Boy finds girl if this statement is true-ish and a lie is where you are. Boy is phone trace and satellite photo and heat signature. Girl is twig askew or trail off cliff or birdsong still. I am investigators close the streets this close to you. Are you you? All right, and now I'm going to read a few from the new book, which really is completely brand new to the point that I'm actually scooping the official book launch party for the book, which is on Thursday. And it's going to be here on Thursday. So if you're thinking about coming to that one, I won't read any of the same poems from the book tonight as I'm going to read on Thursday. And Adrian Matika is going to be there on Thursday. If you know Adrian, he's great. All right, to start off from the book, all the titles in this book are stolen from other sources, other poets, novelists, songs, and so on. I wanted to read one. The title is stolen from a poet named Jake Adam York, who is a friend of mine, also a friend of the series. He read for River Styx about 4 years ago. He passed away in December from a stroke, and so he was always really good to me in my poetry, and I was lucky enough to have a title stolen from him. It's called History on the Heads of Matches. Message written in charcoal and afloat in a bottle's throat. Knowledge soaked in rum and ignited for insurance. Laws shrunk onto dagger blades for a game of five-finger. Loophole cheat sheet on a nail gambled and lost. News clipped from papers and glued to a ransom note. Ticket printed with yesterday's date and winners. Scripture scribbled on a deposit slip and slid to the teller. Script to dynamite the vault when money proved illegible. Map to stolen gold locked in a strongbox full of bullion. Signs for waypoints sunk with a grape shot leak. History who fled through marshland and hid with a hollow reed. Story sentence run on to throw bloodhounds off the scent. The end in willow thicket hunters wouldn't enter. All right, this one is for anybody who's had a wonderful experience with the Transportation Security Administration at an airport. This is all written without any periods. It's all supposed to be one sentence, so I'm going to try to read it in one breath, which usually results in me running out of breath about 3/4 of the way through. I'm sure you'll recognize when it happens. It's called Only the Name of the Airport Changes. For your safety, the maximum magazine size is now lifesaver, or however many metric ounces in a dozen inches of vigilance. No questions, please. You must opt out of your accidental bathroom camera mugshot via fax or Pony Express of a safety word waiver request maze unsolvable, except with a feather pen whose chicken doesn't fly but plucks toothpicks and suspicious facial moisturizers from some orifice. Our stun gun safety is on the honor system that officers respond within 6 weeks if you dismember your unclearance number, Q, safe T. Here's a hoop through which you have the right to jump the line when you pay a Patriot convenience fee, but once we play the safety card, you'd better pray for cancellation. And I do feel I should point out that the thing at the end where it says you can jump the line if you pay a convenience fee, I actually wrote that before they instituted that as an actual thing. So I feel pretty smart for coming up with that. All right, this one, the title on this one is stolen from Kenneth Koch's poem, Variations on a Theme by William Carlos Williams, which is a fun poem. It's based on the I Have Eaten the Plums poem that Williams did. It's a lot of fun. I Chopped Down the House is the name of the poem. Due to childhood lack of calcium school-wide, I cannot tell a lie without losing a tooth. The scroll saw, my buzziest shop tool, cut classrooms into interlocking puzzle pieces. Classmates voted me most likely to be a 3-hole punch. According to Hoyle, I ruled at Ding Dong Ditch, my favorite way to ring my own doorbell, an anvil. My dad hid gardens worth of fertilizer inside his head, which we also called the rumpus room. Mom remained a floor above and sent us gnomic incantations through the vents. My brother's boiling point skipped several centigrade levels. To talk without static, we squiggled our polydactyl cat's back and clicked its tail into a phone jack. We turned rubble to a verb and rubbled our vocabulary to the word Our state bird was burgled, our state flower, debt. I fled our state assessor. And this is one of 2 poems I have about 2 things that I've always sort of wished I was. One is a spy or secret agent, and the other is socially adept. This one's called Codename is the Only One. When I say the chicken hawk sleeps alone isn't much of an introduction, it's not like I can finish a round of double agent without a hangover. The names and ranks I do not have to be tortured to give up of individuals whose lives I do not envy may be disinformation for celebrity patrons I fabulize. The game where one of us plays the spy is too easy if there's just one of us. The password is passive-aggressive. After you crack, is my cover whatever? Why can't you guess this picture I encrypted in invisible ink? It's obvious, it's loneliness. This one, this is one of the poems I wrote the longest ago in here. Title is stolen from Robert Creeley's poem, A Wicker Basket, which I recommend you check out if you don't know it. It's called Face Like a Barn Door. Yours is a fast food milkshake, exactly the same shape as a cold shoulder of beef. Mine they serve all night at Waffle House, smothered and covered by the waitress. Oh, my last salt-shriveled fry, the menu pictures never match our actuality. The cook couldn't use each pound of cow in our countenances, so he hid its hide and sun-dried heart under our bed. Let us return our shit sandwich open-faced to the farmyard. Let us tomato onions at Old McDonald's salmonella. And let us, driving through, stop to pet the piglets. All right, this one has some intentional malapropisms in it, so if you think a word is wrong, it was on purpose in this case. The title is stolen from The Princess Bride. It's called I Do Not Think It Means What You Think It Means. Can you find a thesaurus listing for us? Our synonyms for rumor are all but one untrue. Friends of friends forward the word they hear. Do you find my dishevelry tragic or attractive? I am certainly the most invertebrate of flirts. Our relationship status is unattainable. Do I only do what I do with you? Add in bed after any of my statements, in bed. Repeat and repeat, sitting in a boat. If I compliment you, will you compliment me? When I'm with you, don't whisper implications. When I'm incognito, tell everyone I'm cute. When I'm gone, say I was beautiful. All right, the title for this one is stolen from James Wright's wonderful poem, Autumn Begins in Martins Ferry, Ohio, which I used to know by heart, but I tried to do it today and I don't know it by heart anymore. Otherwise, I might have tried to do it up here, but I'm sorry, I can't do it anymore. It's called Their Sons Grow Suicidally. Beautiful isn't spoken aloud. This Paxil lacks the overdose of those backseat lovers, cold and cloud. This nude bed's not yet said screw yourself up to stick the point of the pen in psychiatry's eye. This dad adopts friend nicknames that amputate the end. This laboratory test job offers options of food or shock from the buzzer button. Eat that and shit and laminate paper tattooed with blueprints and batter your limbic system with bottles and sleep interrupted. They call it getting better. All right, and I'm going to close out with a poem whose title is taken from the book River Runs Through It by Norman MacLean. Very good book, one of my favorites. I highly recommend it if you haven't read it. And it continues the family theme that a couple of these poems have had. It's called Haunted by Waters. Oh brother, the other shore is farther than our father carried us across. The same current that hurries moss and swirls of leaves leaves your ankles broken down in rolling rocks. If you sink to your belly for a drink, the shallows swallow. If you try to stand in step, the deep hand reaches your throat like alcohol. Bite like the blade of a driftboat oar midstream and strain to change the river's course. Fight your end of the line, how steelhead steals rod and reel. Strike wet tinder with the pocket thunderstorm you keep buttoned up. I rain these drops of paper on the water, but they continue floating by you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen D. So we're going to take a very short break, and then we'll be right back here with Annie Finch. So 5 minutes tops, probably. Okay. Staff, hush. Oh, she's not Staff. That's the twin of Staff. I can't tell. Tonight we are excited to kick off our reading series with Stephen D Schroeder and also poet, scholar, editor, and translator Annie Finch. She is the author of 5 poetry collections, 4 books on prosody and the makings of poems, and 1 book of translation. She has also edited 7 collections of poetry and anthologies. Of her newest book, Spells, New and Selected Poems. I lost my place. Oh yeah, just out by Wesleyan University Press, Molly Peacock, a frequent contributor to River Styx and reader at our podium, and one of our favorite blurbists, says, quote, "One of the most dexterous formal poets writing in the United States today, Annie Finch is at ease in a dazzling variety of prosodic modes, from the very short lyric to the sonnet to myriad metrical constructions in stanzaic form. All of her considerable talents are on display in Spells." As a fellow writer of spells, I'm fascinated with the overlap between incantation and poetry, both as a repetitive form and as an expression of desire or volition. Annie Finch explores those mysterious no-man's lands with music and heart, and as in the Wiccan traditions of spells, many of her poems celebrate the earth, the seasons, the natural world, and femininity. Not the dainty Hello Kitty femininity, but as Sonia Sanchez says, quote, "a one-eyed woman looking at us all," end quote. A one-eyed woman who looks unflinchingly into danger and nightmare, and who has lived widely and deeply. Not that Annie Finch couldn't pull off a Hello Kitty poem, by the way. Maybe we should commission. I would love to read an Annie Finch Hello Kitty poem. In addition to her writing, she is currently director of the Stone Coast MFA program in creative writing at the University of Southern Maine. Please welcome two-eyed Annie Finch.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, River Styx. Thank you, St. Louis. It is really fun to be here. I mean, to be flown across the country in order to cross the river into death, I mean, it's transformative. I'm at a kind of a crossroads in my life anyway, and just being here tonight feels like I'm about to get over to something new.
Just don't forget it when you cross Levy coming home.
Thank you. Good point. Something about pomegranate seeds, maybe? Something? I'm sure you can give me tips. You must have given others guidance on how to get back without forgetting, right?
We let them wander.
Well, I'll be ready for my guidance after the reading. I'm going to open with a blessing on the poets. Patient earth diggers, impatient fire makers, hungry word takers, and roving sound lovers, sharers and savers, musers and achers, you who are open to hide or uncover. May language is language. Language is language, the silence that lies under each word. Move you over and over, turning you, wondering, back to surprise. Two bodies. Two bodies, balanced in mass and power, move in a bed through the dark, under the earliest human hour. Their night rocks like an ark. They reach through the ceilings of the night, tall as animals. Through their valleys bends the light of their fertile hills. Two bodies breathe their close hellos through interlocking pores, while the hush of breathing slows, held by many oars. Heart over heart, leg over leg, holding still breath until heart into heart and seed into egg, night holds two bodies still. This book, Spells, includes many poems I call lost poems, poems that I wrote a couple of decades ago that couldn't be published at the time when there was a prejudice against poems in a certain kind of form. And Richard chose one of those to include in the magazine that he was editing, and I'll read it tonight. Some of you may have seen it online. I believe it's called The Beacon. The poem is Nightmare. Opening light calls the river back to sea where the old nightmare has risen from, and she calls herself back in the rhythm that is she. Nightmare, O woman lost in the depths of me, lost to the rage that has risen up with me, lost till I ride you home, nightmare of me. For a more public nightmare, I think the one I feel the most strongly nowadays is climate change. And this is a poem called Earth Day. It was submitted by the Sierra Club. It was sent around as one of their national emails called the Daily Ray of Hope. Earth Day. All we want is to find the love in the faces of the people we love. All we need is to find the dark in the nighttime sky, to lie down to sleep in the darkness where stars and moon keep vigil in the silence of a sleeping earth. All we require is to wake to sunlight in the morning, to simple sky, to breathe aloud as the sky is breathing, to drink the water of the earth. All we need is to touch the planet and find it clean where we were born, where our ancestors breathed and planted, where we live with the plants and birds. All we need is to live with the memory of a future we want to imagine. All we want is to find the love in the face of the planet we love. This book goes way back, 40 years of poetry going forward and back, and as I'm reading to you, I'm spiraling through the different eras. And once in a while, I move to tell you when a poem came from. This is the title poem, Spells, and it was written when I was in college. And at one point, actually, I think Molly Peacock and I were sharing manuscripts back and forth, and she suggested some revisions, and I diligently revised it. Okay, I'm putting this in my selected, I'm going to revise it now. And then, lo and behold, a few months later, it drifted right back to its original self again. So, Spells. From music I bore some gold stone fins, but they sank away through the waffled shallows. From nature I gleaned some hope of rice, but it edged deep away in sunk stone bowls. So then I asked for bowls and fins. I asked for a hand that could gather them back into finning the shallows, gilding, rounding. I guessed me a hand that could gather bowls open. When I had asked whom I had guessed, she sent my asking out. And over she sends it back. Over and over it answers me. Over and over it answers as she gives it, in the speech of fins and in the speech of bowls. Spiraling forward to the present again, or the recent present, I'm going to read a poem for a birth and a poem for an abortion. Home birth. Home is a birthplace since you came to me, pouring yourself down through me like a soul, calling the cosmos imperiously into me, so it could reach to unroll out from the womb where the wild rushes start in a quick, steady heartbeat, not from my own heart. This is my body, which you made to break, which gave you to make you till you bear its mark, which held you till you found your body to take, open at home on my bed in the dark. Abortion spell. Let's keep the world through its own balanced kiss, the kiss come from women made of our own blood, the holder, the cooler, redeeming the earth, shaping the room where we give you your birth. Hands born of woman will not stop this flood, this generous, selfish, long opening gift. Much of my work, as Richard said, involves the seasons, the wheel of the year, as we call it in the pagan tradition. And Spells does contain a sequence of poems for the wheel of the year, 8 poems for the equinoxes and the solstices and the points halfway between them. And in my book calendars, this sequence was the skeleton of the book, and each one has its own section of poems. But in Spells, these are united together again as they were originally meant to be, one sequence of poems. And we're just coming on the time of Mabon, which is the autumn equinox. And it's a time of completion, a time of harvest, a time of celebration for what's been given, what's been received, what's been achieved during the last year before we move towards the winter. And I would like to celebrate with a crown of leaves for the fall equinox called a Mabon crown. Our voices press from us and twine around the year's fermenting wine. Yellow fall roars over the ground, loud in the leafy sun that pours liquid through doors. Yellow, the leaves twist down as the winding of the vine pulls our curling voices. Glowing in wind and change, the orange leaf tells how one more season will alter and range, working the strange colors of clamor and bells. In the winding of the vine, our voices press from us to twine. When autumn gathers, the tree that the leaves sang reddens dark slowly, then suddenly free turns like a key, opening air where they hang. And the winding of the vine makes our voices turn and wind with the year's fermented wine. One of the hanging leaves, deeply maroon, tightens its final hold, receives, finally weaves through, and is covered soon in the winding of the vine. Holding past summer's hold, open and strong, one of the leaves in the crown is gold, set in the cold where the old seasons belong. Green and red are here, orange and gold, yellow, maroon, and bronze, all near, lost by the year, lost, all that fall can hold. Here is our crown of winding vine, of leaves that dropped, that fingers twined. Another crown to yield and shine with a year's fermented wine. I wish you all a magnificent coming year. Out of the morning comes the morning. Out of the morning with the you comes the morning without the you. The morning of the new year, the new cycle, the new season. This is a letter for Emily Dickinson. And I'm reading this partly because Nenora Sweet, a wonderful scholar of women's poetry, is here, who has done so much for the reclamation of women's poetry over the centuries. And I'm very happy that she's here tonight, so I'm reading a letter for Emily Dickinson in her honor. And this is addressed to Dickinson. It's been set to music by a wonderful composer named Laurie Laitman, and you can find it online. And she had two soloists do it, an older woman and a younger woman, and she saw it as a poem about artistic influence. And the younger woman did my poem, and then the older singer did Dickinson's, some poems of Dickinson's intertwined with it. Letter for Emily Dickinson. You'll hear the words called back, which she has on her tombstone. When I cut words you never may have said into fresh patterns, pierced in place with pins, ready to hold them down with my own thread, they change and twist sometimes. Their color spins loose, and your spider generosity lends them from language that may never be free of you after all. My sampler reads, called back. It says, she scribbled out these screeds. It calls, she left this trace, and now we start. In stitched directions that follow the leads I take from you, as you take me apart. You wrote some of your lines while baking bread, propping a sheet of paper by the bins of salt and flour. So if you're kneading lead to words, you'd tether them, as if in thin black loops on paper. When they sang to be free, you captured those quick birds relentlessly, keeping a slow, sure mercy in your deeds, and leaving them room to peck and hunt their seeds in the white cages your vast iron art had made by moving books and lives and creeds. I take from you as you take me apart. I'm going to close with a love sex poem and with a little bit of an excerpt from one of my plays, because I noticed on the poster, the beautiful poster, it says author of Among the Goddesses, an epic libretto in 7 dreams. So I thought I'd read a little of that, which is also excerpted in Spells, though it's a book-length poem on its own. But first, the love poem. This is a Valentine. And I have a tradition of writing a Valentine. Most years I managed to do this, writing a Valentine to my husband. And the year that I wrote this poem, I was also asked to write a paradel, which is a very unusual form invented by Billy Collins as a joke. It's a poem that involves a lot of repetition, as you'll see. You repeat lines in the beginning, you repeat lines in each stanza, and then at the end you repeat all the lines, all the words all together from the whole poem, all mixed up. Yeah, he claimed it was a troubadour form from the 12th century. And a lot of people believed him. Paravaladelentine, a paradel, for Glenn. Come to me with your warning sounds of the tender seas. Come to me with your warning sounds of the tender seas. Move me the way the sea's warm sea will spend me. Move me the way the sea's warm sea will spend me. Move your sea warm come to me. Will with me. Spend tender sounds, warning me of the way of the seas, the seas. Tongues sharp as 2 wind-whipped trees will question. Tongues sharp as 2 wind-whipped trees will question. Skin or nerve waiting, and heart will answer. Skin or nerve waiting and heart will answer. Question will answer. 2 tongues and or will. Heart sharp as nerve trees waiting. Skin whipped wind. Brim your simple hand over where the skin is. Brim your simple hand over where the skin is. Wish again whenever hair and breath come closer. Wish again whenever hair and breath come closer. Closer again whenever. Brim where your skin is, hair, wish, and breath over the simple hand. Come. Spend come, warning me, whenever simple sounds will. Will, move your question, answer your heart-sharp, tender, sea-warm will with me. Way of the seas, where skin-whipped nerve trees wind over waiting tongues, brim closer to me. Again the skin, as wish, and 2 of the breath, hand and hair, or come, is. Okay. And Among the Goddesses, an epic libretto in 7 dreams, tells the story of Marie, who is on a journey of self-definition, and her journey takes her to encounter 7 goddesses: Isis, Astarte, Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, and Inanna, goddesses from different cultures and different times. And in this part of the play, around halfway through, she's been raped and she's pregnant. And she goes to visit the goddess Demeter, who is a woman who lives quietly in Ohio and has a big vegetable garden. And the heroine's name is Lily. Act 3, Scene 1. Demeter's garden in Ohio, tall ripening tomatoes mixed with many herbs and flowers near the side of a large barn. Demeter is picking peas and dropping them into a large metal bowl. As the priests of the goddess, the Caretes, they're called Caretes, chant repeatedly to the traditional tune, Isis, Astarte, Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, Inanna. Lily approaches silently and watches as Demeter sings to herself. Demeter. Long grass pushes up through the trees, hyssop, bee balm, lavender, chicory, mallow, Johnny jump up, love in a mist, coneflower, black-eyed Susan, broccoli, in my circular garden that curves from the earth. Lily. Her hands are wide, cool, and earth-stained like mossy old rocks that a forest has patiently grown up around, died around, fallen near. Demeter, spine in the planet, blood in the wind, as I drop the peas in the aluminum bowl, spine in the planet, blood in the wind. The arms of the planet are holding me alive. Caretes say, here is the mother who watched her own daughter given away and ruined the earth, who now put out leaves and nurtured the earth. Lily watching her. I'd been invaded. The baby was not mine. Why should I carry it? The Caretes, coneflowers blue, fuchsia and silent, as if there were laughter. From the breeze that was suddenly simpler, as if there could once more be joy. It had been months since I'd felt like myself, like Lily, months since my life has moved for me. Demeter. When my darling Persephone was young, she cried every time I pulled weeds. It was hard to see that. It's hard to let go. We need to. Caretes. Silent energy seeding new quiet crystals to form and roots to come down into their veins, with water that pulses, stems reaching, trunks reaching. The other heart has begun its beating. 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 Lily, through my belly run knife-hard images to my body, to my heart. The hate that touched me on the mountain is still thriving, making a silence. I walk cautiously, knowing my belly full of wide wings, night and starlight. Caretes, we are approaching the serpent mound. We are approaching the serpent mound. So Lily goes to the serpent mound, and there she meets the goddess Kali, and she does have an abortion. So that is my reading. Though, if anyone has a request, I will read another poem. Does anyone have a special request? Do you?
Why don't you read another lost poem?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't read many of those.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, here's one I was thinking of reading. Well, this is the first of the lost poems in this book. It's I guess it's an Ars Poetica for the lost poems. It's only 5 lines long, so I may read it twice. I've never read this one aloud before. Such husks of hollowed influence, such clear, thick patterns from the nights that held me full. You keep your own still paces with the last touch of a spirit on you, like a down that ripens, falling everywhere we pass. Such husks of hollowed influence, such clear, thick patterns from the nights that held me full. You keep your own still paces with a last touch of the spirit on you, like a down that ripens, falling everywhere we pass. Thank you.
So we've been doing this little Q&A thing, so I thought I'd give you all a chance to ask the writers a question or two. And I know some people are shy, so I'll kick things off. And I think we only have time for a couple. So first of all, I noticed that both of you write or flirt or play with form, but often bent or broken form. So I'm curious about your decisions to use form, but then also to make it your own or break it, and what you lose or gain by that aesthetic choice.
I guess for me, the choice to use form and the breaking of it are always. I guess for me, the choice to use form and the breaking of it are always, in my ideal situation, they're always completely balanced, like the two threads when you're sewing and you want them with a sewing machine, and the top thread and the bottom thread have to meet in the middle, or like breathing in and out should be balanced. So I don't ever use a form unless I can break it at the same time that I'm using it at every moment, or I feel that I can. So if a form is too familiar to me, I just don't use it. Like I either I invent my own forms, or I'm always looking for new forms, or I just find a form that feels like it has traction and friction with me at that moment, that it's gonna surprise me, it's gonna pull me down, it's gonna dance with me, like it's another being with me. It's not just me using it. So because of that, in order to achieve that, sometimes it has to be unfamiliar form, sometimes it has to be something I'm inventing. There are certain poems like Encounter, for example, which is a poem in spells. It was in iambic meter for about 20 years, and it never felt finished. And then I finally realized it wanted to be in a different meter. It wanted to be in dactylic meter, and that's when it got finished, because that meter had the traction. So it didn't feel as if I was breaking the iambic at that moment when I put it into dactyls. It just felt like I was finding my right dance with it. So I guess I don't really think of it as something that needs to be broken, except insofar as I'm breaking myself in my dance with it at every given moment.
I think my answer is fairly similar. I think for me, the form and the content of the poem have to organically go together when I'm writing, and I find that if I'm writing something if I'm sticking to the strict, it's a sonnet or whatever repeating stanza form or whatever thing I'm trying to stick to formally, I usually write too much to the form. I let the form dictate things, and it doesn't end up working for me. And so it's when I break it by making it work with the content that things turn out better. And I love the metrical sonic play, that word play, that kind of stuff of form, but it has to be on my own terms, I guess.
Are there more questions? I have a question. Yes.
For Amy Finch, you said that some years ago there were forms that there were prejudices against, or could you explain that a little bit more?
The question is regarding to Annie's comments earlier.
They couldn't be published.
About forms that people were prejudiced against. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good question. Thanks. That was about the lost poems. I wrote them in the mid-1980s, and there wasn't anything about those forms in particular. In fact, they're all iambic pentameter, which is the most conventional form you could write, probably, is unrhymed iambic pentameter. And nowadays I mix it up a lot more. But when I was first getting into writing meter, I had started out writing meter when I was a kid, and then I was taught in high school or whatever that if you're a serious poet, this was in the 70s, that you had to write free verse. So I wrote free verse for a long time, probably about 15 years. And then when I began to get back into form again, I was writing these iambic pentameter poems, and you couldn't publish them. The only places at that time that published poetry in meter were very conservative, old-fashioned places, and the stuff that I was writing was weird. It just, it was experimental. It was not very referential. It was strange. I was messing around with language, and there was literally no place to publish them. So I kept them in a drawer, like in a file drawer, for like 20 years, and that's actually how this book came about, Spells, because I showed them to a friend of mine, Kazim Ali, who's fairly open to experimental poetry, and he really liked them, and he showed them to Wesleyan University Press. And they were going to do a whole book of these poems, and then they were like, no, let's just do a selected. But yeah, so it was so different than it is now, because now a lot of experimental poets are beginning to get into writing iambic pentameter. People like Karen Volkman or Dan Beachy-Quick are doing it all the time. But, this was the mid-'80s, so it was, is that 30 years ago? Or 20? 30. Yeah. You just couldn't do it. I mean, if anybody would have understood the language of them, which was so strange, then they would never have accepted the meter. It just wouldn't, it took 30 years.
Was there another question? One more? Someone said they had one somewhere. I saw back there. No? Are we good? Oh, yeah. Sorry, I thought there was one.
I just have a question. This is kind of about the process of writing. When you sit down to compose a poem, where do you do that and how do you do that? Meaning, do you use a pen and paper? Do you use a favorite pencil? Do you have an old typewriter? Do you have legal pads or electronically or how? Or in some cases, has that changed over the years? I think people that are writers in this room might find that interesting. I know I'm always interested in how people sit down and what utensils they use and how does that happen?
Sure. Okay, a question about the process and maybe even the ritual of a writer. Mm-hmm.
All right, my process is completely uninteresting, really. I write on Microsoft Word sitting at my desk. I do have a writing notebook that I write things down in, but mostly what I find happens with that is I write something down that seems like a really good idea, and then I look at it a week later or a month later, and I think it's garbage. So it doesn't really work out very well, or I still think it's okay, and it just doesn't fit in anything I'm actually writing. I guess it's not entirely processed, but the best thing I can say about it is I find I write best when I have some sort of project that I'm writing towards, and I can think of it in the big picture, and then think of what small thing goes in this big picture. Like the book that's new, I was really thinking about that as a whole book pretty much the whole time I was writing it, and I personally find that made the writing of it easier. It wasn't so much a question of how I did each poem, it was just sort of an overall mindset to it.
I used to use an Olympic typewriter when I first started, when I was very young, writing poetry. And at that time I used to sit and write at a desk, but now I normally don't for writing a poem. If I just feel a poem coming on, or I feel like writing a poem, I'll usually take a walk with a notebook, like in the woods or whatever, and just or on the beach, or wherever I can get out in nature, and it just comes to me. And then I'll use that as a draft. And then if I have like a big project, like I want to write a poem for an occasion, or a lot of times my more like big planned poems come out of some commission or occasion, or so, like I'd really like to do that. So a poem like that, I'll often just take a really, really long walk and try to work out the structure in my head. And once I have the structure, then I'll often take a legal pad and just kind of wander around the house. It's hard for me to write a lot when I'm sitting at a desk. And when I'm doing stuff for music, like the opera libretto, if I'm sitting there at my typewriter, I'll just get up and start like singing it aloud to myself. And if I get stuck, I'll just start, running around like a crazy person, repeating lines to myself. So for me, it's a lot of it is just letting it come into my head, whatever it takes to shock the words to come into my head.
All right, I would like to thank both Stephen D Schroeder and Annie Finch for reading with us tonight and kicking off our season. course, we'd also like to thank the Missouri Humanities Council for letting us film this and do our podcast as we're doing. So watch your language, you in back, especially board members. I know how you talk, because it'll be immortalized forever. But thanks to them for letting us do this. Thanks to the Tavern for letting us do this for our second year now. And last, of course, thank you all for coming. And hopefully we will see you on October 21st, where we will be featuring novelist John Dalton and then Holly Goddard Jones, who writes novels and stories and maybe essays too, right? Kimberly, you're not reacting.
Yeah, the essay thing, I'm not sure about that.
Okay, I thought I'd read one somewhere. But okay, but we'll be featuring John Dalton and Holly Goddard Jones on October 21st, so hopefully we'll see you then. Good night. Thank you.